giant robots smashing into other giant robots.
This is the Giant Robots Smashing into Other Giant Robots podcast, where we explore the design, development, and business of great products. I'm your host, Chad Pytel.
And I'm your other host, Sami Birnbaum.
And today we are here to talk about products and our product ideas.
Yeah, let's get into it.
I'm sure you're bristling with new product ideas.
I actually do have a few, but because what I've always been interested, so we work as a consultancy, right? And I feel there's a big difference between a product company and a consultancy company. And I remember at my previous role before thoughtbot, we had this kind of phrase, which was kind of like feast and famine. So at a consultancy, we often found ourselves that sometimes we had loads of projects in. So it was like feast. And then you kind of get sometimes where, oh, those projects have wrapped up and I need to win my next projects. And then you hit famine. And the dream, which was interesting from the previous companies, they always wanted to evolve into a product company. So they didn't have these issues. At the same time, there wasn't a great, we tried actually, we went on some tech accelerators and we tried to build our own product, which I can speak to you in a bit about. But before we brainstorm on our products, does that concept resonate with you, kind of as being the CEO of a consultancy and seeing how other product companies operate?
Yeah, and I also, meet a lot of people who run consultancies, and many people think that they're going to get started doing consulting to make ends meet and then transition to a product company.
Oh, interesting.
But that's really actually hard to do in practice, because building successful products is hard and takes a lot of energy. Building a consulting company is also hard and takes a lot of energy. And when you get on the treadmill of consulting, you need to keep that treadmill going. And you find that you don't have all the time that you thought you were going to create those products that you want. And so you think that the solution is, well, if I grow a little bit, then that will create the bandwidth and the profit to be able to work on products. So you get to 8, 10, 12 people. And then you think that that's the magic number where you're going to be able to work on products. But now you've got yourself in a position where you need to pay 8, 10, 12 people every month. And so the solution to that is not to create products that don't generate revenue. The solution to that is to get more consulting clients. And the cycle repeats over and over and over again, and never really goes away for a lot of companies.
I mean, well, in the 20 plus years that you've been doing this with thoughtbot, did thoughtbot ever go through an iteration where they thought maybe we will transition or we'll have a separate arm which kind of does products?
So we've created 12 products over the course of the 22 years we've been in business. We grew them to a certain point and then either spun them off or sold them, or shut them down or put them into maintenance mode or that kind of thing.
Okay.
And so we did go through a period of time where we had for our biggest products, a team of 2 or 3 people working on them. And then when we had a batch of smaller products, we had a team of 2 or 3 people who split their time across those products.
And let's say there was a product that thoughtbot developed. I mean, I think this way about Hub, which is our internal product that we use to manage almost everything across our systems. Imagine there was that product or a different product really did take off and was gaining traction and was bringing in a lot of revenue. Would that be a thing where it was like, okay, maybe we would transition more to a product company, or that's not the goal either way?
I don't think that that's our goal. I think we like consulting and we've built a business to do that. So we don't need to shut down one business in order to create another one. We're big enough now where, and that's also why even if we had a successful product before, we probably wouldn't have transitioned. It's too big, and it's also a different like you said at the beginning, product companies and consulting companies are different. So you're not going to necessarily take everything and everyone and just seamlessly transition 100-person team to work on a product. So
I also wonder, like, how much do you reduce risk? Like, in being a consultancy, right? And I've worked on startups which haven't ended up doing well and kind of have wound down. But we are kind of diversified between lots of different startups. Whereas if you have one singular product and you may do well for a certain number of years and then you may hit a downturn, it's kind of even more risky. So one's got the feast and famine cycle, but the other one has its own risks.
Famine to failure cycle.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
That's why, one of the nice things about what we've done is you do have a little bit, you get to a certain size and you do have a little bit of room to incubate ideas. But in particular, the way that we do investment time, the successful products that we've had have been tools that we use ourselves, or we see the value of using in our day-to-day work. We start to work on them during investment time. They gain traction. We start using them. Then it becomes a public either tool or service, and people start signing up and paying us to use it. And that could be everything from the books that we've written to Airbrake and FormKeep and the products we've created over the years. And you can sort of incubate them to the point where they get successful enough where they need something more, like salespeople who are dedicated to that or marketing people who are dedicated to that. And then that's the point where we've discovered, well, we would need to start building a separate business around this product. Maybe that's the good point to be able to sell it to someone who will take it and run with it or spin it out into its own company or those kinds of things. Spinning it out makes sense when you think you need external investment.
Right. That's really interesting. Do you ever think about Hub then? Have you ever thought about because it's a similar thing, I guess 37 Signals did. This is not an interrogation, by the way. Feel free to plead the fifth and say I'm not going to respond.
I'm happy to. So we resisted creating something like Hub for years and years and years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so for people who don't know, Hub is an internal system that manages our scheduling. The clients we have, it's like a CRM combined with a ERP system, messaging, that kind of thing. And we like to use external services, but it's called Hub because it is sort of the connector between, and at least that's how it was envisioned. We've built more and more stuff directly into Hub over the years. But so we resisted even creating Hub for a long time because we said we're not so special as to be able to not use off-the-shelf software.
Right.
And so we forced ourselves to use off-the-shelf software for a while. When we created Hub, we said, okay, we see the need to do this for these reasons, but the target needs to be something just useful at thoughtbot, because if we try to make it generic, if we try to make it a product, it increases the overhead even more for what that product is to work on and maintain and all that stuff. And that I believe is true. Like the amount of effort we would need to go through to make Hub actually usable by other people is very high.
Right.
I think it'd be more likely that we would have a piece of Hub that was valuable enough on its own to sort of break off and create something new or something. And I thought about that. The issue is, how would we architect? I believe it's important to have something that we're using ourselves. And so if you had to have a separate service as its own standalone thing, would we use that or would we use what's in Hub? I'm not quite sure how that would work.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So let's talk products then. I think we can. Everyone who's listening or watching this episode has obviously agreed to sign their NDAs, so nothing's going to get copied.
Well, we're going to give people if someone hears an idea today and they want to run with it, be my guest.
Yeah. See how far you can get.
Well, like I said, I think that the most successful products that Thoughtbot has created have been ones for designers and developers to use in our own work. And I think that that's key is when you're someone who's creating a product that you yourself would use, it's very motivating to work on it. You also know what features you need or don't need. So you can really get to MVP quickly. And that doesn't just need to be in our design and development work. It could be, a product in your own life that you would actually use.
So I've been thinking about a product, and this comes from a real world problem, which I think and maybe it exists, but not in the UK at least. So when I go with my family to theme parks in the UK, we spend so much time standing in queues.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't make sense to me where you would spend a lot of money to go there and stand in queues, right? So there has to be a better system.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't understand why there can't be, whether it's either it's a virtual queuing app, right? So you don't have to spend time in the queue. You can go onto the application on your phone and put yourself virtually into a queue. And then you can be called to come to that ride when you're ready. So you don't have to be in a queue. Or even better than that is there must be, okay, if you go to a theme park in the summer, you're going to have a bad time. Okay, let's say there's 20 rides there.
Mm-hmm.
You're only going to get on 3. If you go when it's off peak, you can get on all 20 and maybe you can do some even more than once.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be an optimum amount of people that should be allowed to enter that everyone can go on every single ride. Because if I'm providing you a service and I allow you to come in to my premises and I say, yeah, but you can only use a limited amount of the service, that's not a great way to provide a service.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 2 apps here. There's one is the idea, let as many people come in as you want, but have a virtual queuing app. Another one is use an algorithm to work out, given the amount of how many people can we let in to allow each of them to have an opportunity to go on every single ride. And it could use that same queuing app.
But isn't that against the incentive of the theme park? They want to sell as many tickets as they can on every day.
So then maybe it's human psychology I struggle with. Why do people keep going to theme parks on busy days? Because I think if you go on a busy day, you do have a bad time. You always complain like, oh, I've been queuing up for 3 hours or 2 hours for this ride.
So there's the product you're describing seems to me like what you get at some restaurants when you show up and you put your number in the queue and it texts you when your table is ready.
Yes.
Yeah. I also think that Disney World has something like this for the most popular rides.
Is that the fast pass or fast track thing?
I think it's a little bit different. I think you have the fast pass or whatever it's called, where you sign up for a specific time slot, and then you show up during your time slot. But I think for certain popular rides like Rise of the Resistance or things like that, they also have you show up, you don't have to wait in line, you get a text or something when it's your turn.
Okay.
I could be wrong about that, but it's definitely not on every ride. I just think it might be on some.
But I see what you're saying. You're saying if imagine that you had that same app, right?
Yeah.
And you would put into it months before, right? You would say, these are the rides I want to go on, months before you attend. And then the algorithm works out, well, if you come on this day, given the amount of people that are coming, and therefore the amount of queues that are possible, and therefore the amount of time you can spend in the park, you will be able to go on all these rides throughout your day. You're saying there's a disincentive to the theme parks because they won't make as much money.
If they're limiting the number of people in the park. But if you don't limit it and instead you're just making it more efficient for people to do the rides that they want,
But that's a good point. Meaning you could say as many people come into the park as normally come in.
Mhm.
But we're going to tell you the most efficient times for you to go to certain rides so that it will be the least queuing. For
Yeah,
example, if you have the most popular
you
ride,
you say I want to. There's no queues at all. You just say, I want to ride this ride, and it says, okay, you're in line, and it texts you when it's your turn.
Yeah, but even more efficient would say, imagine most people come into the park and they head straight for the most popular ride,
Yeah.
right? So the most popular ride, well, there's two theories here, right? I don't know if you have this, I have this. We go in and we say when everyone comes in at the entrance, they always start from the rides they see first because everyone gets excited.
Mhm.
So we always have this theory of we walk first to the back of the park
Yeah.
and make our way towards the entrance in the assumption that we'll avoid queues. But I wonder because if you work out and you say, well, most people go to the most popular rides at these times of the day, if when they say, I want to go on this ride, instead of putting them straight into the queue, you spread out kind of when people go onto the ride throughout the entire day,
Mhm.
then I wonder if that helps. I'm solving a common problem, right? I mean, this is a problem of queuing at theme parks.
Yeah, I think let's think through this. You run into a little bit of a problem with when there's no queue, because I say, okay, I'm in the virtual queue for this roller coaster.
Okay.
What am I doing with my time then?
Okay, that's a really good point.
Am I going on another ride? Well, I can't be in the queue of two rides at the same time. Or if I'm on another ride and then it's my turn on the one I was in the virtual queue, I miss my chance.
Yeah, what you're highlighting is a few edge cases, which I think we can just kind of skim over. I mean, yeah, these. Okay, so the first question, right? What do you do with the free time? So do theme parks? Is it beneficial for their customers to be standing in a queue? I'm not sure. Like, do they want us in queues?
I
You don't know.
I can't think of a reason why they would.
Okay, so if you're out of a queue, right,
Yeah.
then you've got all those kind of like stalls, or you've got those, places you can eat.
Right.
You're more likely to engage in other activities and
Right.
spend more money.
But you're not allowed to do anything that prevents you from being able to go on the ride when it's your turn.
Okay, so what you're talking about is no-shows,
Right.
right?
Yeah, but if it's not a no-show if you really wanted to do that ride, and because you're busy not in the queue, you're unable to do the ride. That would be a disappointing experience. You were in the queue for an hour waiting to go on that ride, and then you missed it.
Yeah, but I've solved that already.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, I just didn't tell you about the feature that just came into my head.
Oh, okay.
So I should have started with this feature. When you go on a ride, you scan the QR code,
Mhm.
right? And then the app tells you whether you're being responsible and have enough time to go on this ride, or whether actually you need to head back because it's nearly your time at the ride you're already queuing for.
If there's a virtual queue, can you be in more than one queue at a time?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
say
then
confidently. Yeah.
the park could know that you've been put on for the other ride. And actually it could all go into the optimization algorithm.
And that's why you were going to be my first engineer.
Yeah.
I was going to wait till the end of the episode to kind of onboard you. But yes, that would work. Meaning they would know kind of where you were, and therefore they could potentially even kick you out a queue, or they could delay you.
Right.
They could push you back.
Mm-hmm. Because you're busy doing something else.
And then from a customer perspective, like how much better is your day? Like imagine if you can turn to your kids who are moaning in the queue.
Yeah.
And you can show them on the app and you can say, listen, we are in all these queues. These are the times we're arriving. This is when we're going to get there. And we will go on everything.
Dad, you're the best dad in the whole world.
Yeah.
We love you so much.
And did you know, children, that I built this? That I did a Giant Robots podcast episode, and I went and I built this app off the back of that. And they would say, that's amazing, Dad. Who were you speaking to at the time? Well, my first engineer that I hired. I don't know. I always, every time I'm in a theme park, I think about it. Yeah.
So this is so we've solved the product side of things, but the customer is the park, not the end user. So then we need like an enterprise sales force selling to these.
Do you, or do you just need influencers, Chad? Because this is 2025. So if we get a few influencers on board, right, and they start saying on TikTok that, oh wow, look at this, theme park queue app,
right? And it's so popular that everyone just starts using it and agrees, I'm not going to go on this ride unless I queue virtually.
No, you can't go. So what
you could do an end run around the theme parks at all if everyone just agrees to use the app.
Oh, they have to use the app. They can't get in the theme park unless they use the app. So what happens is a theme park. Our first theme park, we have a pilot trial with. We'll go small, like Six Flags. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you have Six Flags in the UK?
No, but I know it's in America, and isn't that one of the best?
I guess.
It seems like they do the coolest roller coasters.
Yeah, they have cool roller coasters.
Okay. What's the biggest?
Disney World.
Disney, and that's Florida.
Yeah.
Okay. So we get Disney World on board, and they trial the app and they run it. And everyone who comes into the park can only enter via the app because the app is now also helping with purchasing of tickets.
Right.
And what happens is people start to have a really good time, and everyone starts to give 5-star reviews to Disney, and they start saying all over social media, I'm having the best time. I managed to go to Disney today. I could do everything that I wanted to do, even though it was the middle of the school or the summer holiday. And people stop going to the other theme parks who don't have the app. Because why would you go there when I could go to Disney World? So it's almost.
But then people stop going to those theme parks, so there's no lines. So you can get onto all the rides that you want.
Well, yeah, maybe. So what you're saying is the actual millions we've invested into this app actually benefits those who don't purchase the app.
Potentially.
So hopefully we could. Well, if we can demonstrate that it gives people a good time consistently, then other theme parks will also purchase the app and say, we're going to use this app.
That would be the hope, right? Do you have a lot of contacts at theme park administrating?
Like I'm working on it. I think I need. Yeah, I don't know if I would build it first, but I keep coming back to your.
Oh, you can't build it. I don't think you can build this product first. I think you need to have a customer.
But my biggest problem, which I can't answer, right? Which is, let's say you're the theme park, and I bring this idea to you, and we do some data modeling, and we work out that your footfall, because of this, is going to go down from 100,000 customers to 50,000 customers per year. I don't know how I can sell that if I've just dropped your...
I think you say it's going to make you more efficient so that you can sell more tickets and increase the number of people in your parks.
But I've capped tickets. I've limited tickets.
Well, don't. Just focus on the efficiency of getting everybody onto the rides.
So don't limit tickets. And if you come on a really busy day and you try and select more than 3 rides, it will say, sorry, it's not going to be possible.
Mm-hmm. Until you do go on those rides. Or is it better to just let people queue and you say, well, you've queued for this, you're going to go on it in 4 hours time. Is it better to know that that's the case than to go on a bunch of rides and then have to wait in an hour-long queue for that ride?
Yeah, I think so. It's just a question of, so if we don't limit it, then I don't think we're changing anything for them. You have as many people as normally come in. This is just making things more efficient for the customers.
Mhm.
But if we limit it to ensure that everyone can go on every single ride, it's also too complicated as well, because some people don't want to go on every single ride.
Right.
It very much depends on age group and
I think telling the theme parks that you're going to limit the number of tickets is a non-starter.
really.
That's not what they're in the business of doing.
So let's pretend you're a theme park and you make £1 million a year, right? And I'm going to say we're going to drop you to £500,000 a year. But
This is
you're
why
gonna
you don't do sales at thoughtbot.
I know you're going to sell more slushes. Think about all the slushes that people can buy because they're not queuing anymore. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Look, there's tweaks, but it's incredible to see that within half an hour of this podcast, we've got like a fully fledged product that's ready to go. Where would you
AI
start?
has been listening to this while we've been talking, and it's been coding. Agents have been coding it in the background.
It's been vibe coding it. Perfect.
Yeah.
If someone came to you or to thoughtbot with this incredible idea,
Mm-hmm.
where would a person start? Would they say kind of research? Like you were saying, you asked me, do I know anyone in theme parks?
Right.
Is that the first place you go? Or do you go and do maybe some data modeling and say, does this algorithm actually even make sense if I have X amount of rides and X amount of time and X amount of people?
It doesn't matter whether the algorithm makes sense if you don't have any customers who will ever use that algorithm. So you've got to start on the customer user side of things.
And does that involve also working out how much would you be willing to pay for a service? Because if they all said, well, and also another question, because you were saying Disney has something like this. Well, not just Disney, but if they promote the podcast, we will say it's only at Disney. That they have their own technology, so they could just turn around and say, "Well, we are developing this, or we're going to do this in-house."
If someone came to thoughtbot with this idea with no industry connection at all to theme parks, the chances of them being successful are almost zero.
And why is that?
Because the lack of knowledge that they have about the industry, the lack of connections, and the legwork that would need to have happen would mean all of that needs to happen before spending money creating a product. Because if you don't get traction, if you don't have customers, then it doesn't matter how great of a product that you've actually built. And that's so far uphill for someone who has no industry connections. No, you're going to knock on doors of these theme parks and have to build the relationships with them, that sort of thing. That's what you should be going and doing before having us build a product.
But then what you're highlighting is how difficult it is. Even if you have the most incredible idea, it's so difficult to get a product off the ground because you already need to spend months, years building those relationships, getting knowledge of an industry.
Yeah. That's not to say like you could do a clickable prototype, you could make a good slide deck, that communicates what your idea will be and makes it realer in people's minds. But if you don't have customers, then building software is really almost certainly not the right thing to do.
That's interesting, which brings me to my more simple idea. Okay?
Yeah.
Imagine, I don't know if you have this frustration, right? Supermarkets. Yeah?
Yes.
They're quite big. What do you call them?
Supermarkets? That's what we call it.
Cool. You can get some really big supermarkets with lots of aisles. When you're there and you've got a big shopping list of things you need to get, it's difficult to know where things are. Sometimes you might know because you have experience of going there a lot. And sometimes you might have to ask people if they're available and they'll tell you where things are. You might keep going back to the same one because you have familiarity and you can do things quicker. Okay?
Yeah.
So I've seduced you now. Here comes the idea. What about if you have like Waze. Are you familiar with Waze, the app?
Yes.
Okay. But it's for a supermarket.
Yep.
So you go in there, it's got your item list, and it directs you exactly where to go with the most efficient route
Mm-hmm.
to get you all the products you need. Sold. Done.
See, now this is a little bit different than my previous advice, where the end user, the reason why I especially was on, if you don't have customers, this isn't going anywhere, is because the end user was not the customer. So you needed to, you had a
Oh, I
theme
see.
park who was your customer, but the people who are actually using it aren't paying. So this is a little bit different because you have an app and the users of you don't need the supermarket to buy the app at all. In theory, you could crowdsource this information with the users. Waze doesn't have an intermediate person who's actually paying Waze. You know,
But how does it get, like, how would I get access to the route or where the products sit in a supermarket? So by tracking users' movement towards things for their shopping lists.
mm-hmm.
What do you think about the idea then? Would you pay for something like this, Chad?
No, I wouldn't. I think most people get the same thing almost every time they go to the store. And the problem that I have is when I need something new and can't find it. But that's that's an every once in a while thing. It's not a product that would be so valuable to me that I would actually buy it. That doesn't mean that there's not a customer base for it. It's just I don't think I'm the customer.
Interesting. I see what you're saying. It's kind of, the problem is not actually as big as I think it is.
That's my hypothesis, but I would test that out, talk to other people, say, how often do you get something? Tell me about your routine when you go to the grocery store.
Okay. So I will take out my phone and I will normally read a text message, which is a curated list of items.
Mm-hmm.
And I will use that to go and find where the items are. It's taken me, it takes me probably like 6 months. So let's say I go to a store once a week,
Mm-hmm.
right? It probably takes me 20 times, so we're talking over 20 weeks, to get familiar with where most of the common things are that I will pick up.
How often do you go to a different store?
Not very often. There's 2 main stores that I go to.
Mm-hmm. And when you show up at that store, do you go the same path every time or a different path?
I normally go for the things where I know where they are first.
Mm.
So I've got familiar now with, like, this is the aisle that does, bread and baked goods.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the aisle that does like the frozen section, for example.
Yeah.
I've got slightly more familiar.
Tell me about your list, your shopping list. Does it have everything that you want to buy that day on it, or only some of the things?
It normally has everything. I normally don't deviate from the list.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a programmer. I do what I'm told.
Are you the one building the list?
No, I'm not. No.
So you get a text message from your partner.
Yeah,
with the list.
I could sometimes add my own things.
And then you're going down that list.
Yeah, see, I'm quite programmatic. I actually, although I will sometimes deviate from the order of the list and go to where I go to the places that I understand, that I know where things are.
Mm-hmm.
I do like to go in order,
Mm-hmm.
even if that sends me to different places. But I sometimes do you ever go into a new store and end up being there for much longer than you needed to be?
Yes.
Because you don't know where things are.
Yes. But that's pretty rare. It's usually when I'm traveling, on vacation with family or something like that, and we have to go to a different store. And then we're not only in an unfamiliar store, but we're probably getting things that are different than we usually get.
Right.
Because we're mixing it up, or we're in a
Right.
different environment, or there's different brands in that store, that kind of thing. We have a lot of store brands here in the US.
I guess I've got to throw the ball back into your court and say, what are you bringing to the table? I mean, we've kind of.
Well, so
Yeah.
that was good. How we did some questions. Just from my side, we do it a little bit differently. In my family, we have a shared reminders list, but the only things on that list are the things we know, like, don't forget this, or this is something special that we need this time. Otherwise, we go through the same route through the store pretty much every time we go, picking up all of the things we usually get. And then we have the list of things like, don't forget this. It's, we need this because we don't have any more of it, or it's this special thing for this meal that we want to make. And so the list only has the special things on it.
Right.
But we're just a habit of, we're going a certain route through the store, picking up the things that we usually get along the way.
I'm not sure how to feel about this. I mean, it's been 40 minutes and I feel like, we've taken apart this was my future. This was my college tuition, for my kids, these products. But what you would say is you've actually saved me a lot of time and money that I've been thinking about putting into these products.
Yeah. I mean, most new businesses fail.
Yeah, that's something which really bothers me when it comes to it bothers me for personal reasons. But I find that especially like when I've worked with startups, people do put a lot of effort and a lot of energy. And what would you say is completely anecdotal, but percentage-wise, what are the chances of new startups making it? And let's define making it. Let's say to be profitable enough to support a family or support themselves.
So one of the dynamics that has skewed this is people consider taking money from other people as success in business or product, and that's not really genuinely a success metric of have we built a sustainable, successful company. But it skews things because you can also take a bunch of money from people, spend it all, take more money from other people, spend it all, and continue to lever up until you're acquired by a larger company.
I see what you mean.
And never have actually built a profitable company, and everyone applauds and says, you were so successful.
So why didn't you give me that advice for my theme park app? That's the way to go.
That is the way. You're right. That is the way to go. No, this sounds. I may be coming off as pessimistic, but I think that my general feeling is I would rather be realistic about things so that I can understand the pitfalls and then work around them, or fail fast and then figure out the new thing to do. And so it can come off as pessimistic, but I think this is what you need to do. You need to be able to hold, I think successful people in building new businesses are able to hold both of those things in their head at one time. I'm super passionate about this idea. It is going to go out in the world, and I'm losing sleep at night because I can't stop thinking about this idea and I want it to be in the world. And the idea is probably going to fail. So how do I make it not fail? In terms of actual percentage, I think there's a lot of companies that never really build a successful business, but everyone considers successful. So that drives up the percentage. And I think there's something like half of all businesses fail within the first year or something like that. And I think when it comes to products, I think it's something like 25% of products are successful, something like that.
Okay, so that's not bad actually. I thought it would be lower. I thought the metric would be lower than
Yeah,
that. I mean,
well, that's
yeah.
why I think that the fundraising cycle is what I'm
Right.
saying makes
Yeah.
it higher than it actually is.
We're running out of time.
Yeah.
But you
You
never
want
brought a
me to
product to
throw
the
out a product
table.
idea, is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing
I mean,
from you.
what? Yeah, I got to get one. What's in your head?
Both of your ideas were brand new product ideas that don't exist, right? So you've got to prove the business as well as the product idea. That's pretty
Agreed.
risky. It might be safer to say, what is a successful business? Competition isn't necessarily bad. Competition is great. It shows you multiple companies are making money in this area with this business. So if you can do the same thing better or cheaper or faster as them, then you can provide a compelling case and you know that there's a business and customers already there. So as someone who wants to make a successful business, that's what I gravitate towards. And as a developer, I gravitate towards tools that are useful to me. And so things like, things that we've done at thoughtbot, like error catching, and so I look at my workflows and think, what's a product that I use on a regular basis that makes me really unhappy?
Interesting. I never thought about that. That's so interesting. Okay.
Now, for me, that I do a lot of development, but the thing that when I ask myself that question, the thing that comes to mind is our CRM software, and I'll name it's Fresh Sales.
Okay.
I am so fucking tired of going to a web page and having clicking on an input text box and then having the focus stolen and removed from that text box as the rest of the page renders.
Okay, so we've got the clip there for the production team, please. If we can clip that and get that all over TikTok, that will bring in the listeners. Where does the focus go? What do you mean it gets lost?
You have your cursor in a text box, you start typing,
And then it's out. It's
and
gone.
then it's gone. It's because of this, it's built in React. Different parts of the page are loading asynchronously all throughout everything. Who knows what is going on in different parts of the page? I got, pop-ups popping up everywhere as different flash messages are loaded in asynchronously. Like, who knows what's stealing focus? But and CRMs, there's so many of them. You can make, you can make something as shitty as what we're using, and we're paying hundreds of dollars a month. Salesforce is hundreds of dollars a month. And no one likes it.
So well, that's what I'm trying to work out. So what keeps people on a product like that and keeps them paying if there's other options out there?
I think people, once you start to use it, all your data is in there. The cost of switching is really difficult. It's what everyone uses. So there are lots of plugins available for the most popular ones and integrations and that kind of thing. So the cost of switching is high. And I don't necessarily like when your software needs to be everything to everybody, it's going to be bad. So
it becomes
you
nothing.
need if you have an opinion and you're willing to not, the target isn't to build a multi-billion-dollar company, but instead to make a sustainable, profitable business, then you can free yourself to say, well, we're not going to be a fit for everybody.
And so then it's interesting. So what you're saying is, as a good product idea would be a different CRM. We'll be creating a CRM which does similar things, to fresh sales.
Mm-hmm.
So you would call it Sales Fresh, would be the name.
Sales
And
bot.
so SalesBot, that's great. So SalesBot, which is kind of a sister product of Theme Park Bot, that SalesBot would then do a lot of the things that Fresh Sales does, but you would try to do it in a better way. But then you hit the problem that you described yourself, which is it's very difficult for people to transition from one product to another.
Yeah, and but at least you know that there are lots of these products, and they do
I see
have
what you mean.
customers.
There's a market, right?
Right. And so I feel I like to believe that if you build a quality product in a space that is opinionated and you've gotten your opinion right for a particular niche, that you can build a sustainable business. You're probably not going to build a multi-billion-dollar company with hundreds of thousands of users and thousands of employees, but that's also not usually my goal. And I'm not particularly passionate about a CRM. I'm just saying when I look at what I use on a daily basis that really frustrates me, that's the one.
I would say Jira. Some people like it.
Yeah. I see. I don't use Jira on a regular basis, but I totally agree.
I don't I don't want to get into like a place of criticizing, but it was when I used it on a previous client, and that was that was the project management tool that they were using.
Yeah.
It was horrendous.
Yeah, and Jira advocates will tell you, well, it was probably improperly configured. Jira out of the box is great, but it's how people use it and set it up and change how it's like, okay, so but how about make a product that doesn't let people turn it into shit? How about that? I've been swearing a lot on this episode.
It's brilliant. Yeah, let's clip them up. Someone will be able to do that. Someone can make a mash of just Chad just swearing. Just get that going. Main takeaways. I mean, I appreciate the realism when it came to my product ideas, and I think that it's an interesting way to kind of look at when you're thinking about developing a new product, that you were saying, to kind of see what already is out there, because you can see where certain market exists. And it was interesting to kind of think about in a different way, instead of I go around normally thinking, where's something brand new that no one else has done?
Mm-hmm. Now, we need you in the world. We need people who do that. Otherwise, we'll never have anything new. So that's super valuable. And optimists create new things. They see new opportunities and go after them. So, but I think so that it's not to discourage you. It's again to be like, oh, that's that pitfall. Okay, how do we work around that pitfall and make sure we don't fall into it?
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me value and meaning and telling me there's a place in the world for me. I do appreciate that. I do understand it. And it was a great chat. It was a great conversation about product. Let's see what comes out next time we all get together, and hopefully we'll have Will back with us.
Yeah, we missed you today, Will, buddy.
Yeah, we want to hear your product ideas.
You can find notes for this episode at giantrobots.fm.
You can reach out to us at hosts@giantrobots.fm.
You can find me on Mastodon at cpytel@thoughtbot.social.
And you can hit me up on LinkedIn or sammybirnbaum.com. This podcast is brought to you by thoughtbot in conjunction with SalesBot and Theme Park Queuing's Never Again. Thanks for joining us.
I'll see you next time.
Bye.